Welcome, everybody. This is Starting Out Bright, and I am Noreen Savage. Thanks for being here tonight. And you're in for a treat because Colleen McKenney's in the house. Now, if you haven't been here before, I just want to introduce myself to you very briefly, why I'm doing this, and it's just to encourage you on your bright line eating journey, or maybe encourage you to get started. And for me, I want to let you know I'm nobody official with Bright Line Eating, but the program has done a lot for me. I got acquainted with it through my friend who posted on Facebook in 2019, May 2019. She said she lost 57 pounds in 1 year. And she was posting actually because her friend had introduced her the same way by posting. And so she was going to pay it forward by posting also. I saw that. She had a note like, get a hold of me if you want any info, and that's what I did. My fingers flew over to Messenger, and I asked my friend Lori how she lost the 57 pounds. She told me about a book called Bright Line Eating, written by Dr. Susan Pierce Thompson, that in the book was described an eating program with 4 bright lines: no sugar, no flour, 3 meals a day, weighed and measured portions. And to all that, I thought, absolutely no way could I do any of that. I felt almost a grieving process at that moment. But Lori assured me it could be done. We got together for lunch, and she told me more about the program. And by the end of that, she encouraged me to, 1, get the book, and 2, get into the community. At that time, she suggested a private group called We Eat Bright with Lines. That group is still going strong. There are many other groups, including Starting Out Bright, which is a private group, recipe groups, all kinds of private groups and public groups. But anyway, I did that. I got the book and I got in the group. And I just sat and watched and was amazed at the transformations I was seeing take place before my very eyes. People losing weight, like a lot of weight, not just 5-10 pounds as I was doing with every other diet every other month. It was like 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 150 pounds. And for the first time in a long time, I had hope rise in me that I just knew this was something special. And I promised myself that if I lasted 1 year, I would do what my friend Lori did and her friend did the year before. I would post on my Facebook page and I would help anybody that I could. Well, I got started in July 2019. That was 2 months it took me to jump in. And so the next year was July 2020. I was sitting right back there in that chair, wondering what I was going to post. And I am a Christian. I felt God say, Noreen, you can do more than that. You could connect people. These people that inspired you in the group, if you could just get some of them to tell their story to those who were like you, almost hopeless after 20, 30 years of dieting. If you could just connect them, wouldn't that be great? But who would come? And why would they come? Well, I tell you why they'll come. It's because of, in my own case, I'm 5'2", and at my high weight, I was 270 pounds. What was going on? I had excruciating knee pain, swollen feet, pre-diabetic. Who knows? I might have been diabetic. I was afraid to go to the doctor. Hard to get around, snoring every night, sleep apnea, backache, all the things that you don't want to have. And so I was ready to go. And I had all my whys already, most of them health related. So anyway, that is what got me in. And if I'm speaking to one person tonight, I invite you to listen hard tonight because you're going to be inspired by Colleen. And I hope this is the night that you decide to jump in. So without further ado, help me welcome Colleen McKenney. Colleen, you know, we got together this week over Zoom. It was so great, even though we had technical difficulties. We spent all our Zoom with the speaker off and I had to get a phone in. It was crazy. But at the very end, I figured out it was my speaker. So anyway, welcome, Colleen. I'm so glad you're
Thank
here.
you.
And you were so surprised when I reached out to you, but you had posted in the Facebook group Starting Out Bright about your journey. And so the first thing that I'd like to I told a little bit about myself of what drew me into something so drastic as no sugar, no flour. If you could just kind of bring us up to speed, where were you before coming into Brightline Eating? And obviously this isn't usually like 5 minutes before. Go back a little bit and just tell us what your circumstances were.
Well, I had not been a heavy kid, and I had episodically gained and lost weight, but never a huge amount. And then when I was about 29 years old, my youngest child was 2. I started feeling off, and I was having pains in my breast and shortness of breath, and I couldn't figure out what was happening with me with this. So I went to the doctor, and they told me it was all in my head. And I never mentioned it to another doctor because I was humiliated. And it was 6 years before I was diagnosed with breast cancer in my 30s. And I had a striated intraductal carcinoma, which does not present as a lump. He never inspected, he never did anything. And it was a nurse that saved my life because I said to her, and during that time, I gained weight. I gained a lot of weight. I think my metabolism went crazy. And the fatigue was incredible during those years. I just would get so tired. So after I had the mastectomy, I had a modified radical mastectomy and lost part of the muscles in my chest wall and under my arm and 9 lymph nodes. Fortunately, it hadn't gone any further, and I've had no recurrence.
Wow.
So it's 40 years.
And
Yay.
so I was not familiar with that kind of presenting, that there wasn't a lump. When you said it was basically presenting as pain, and then later the nipple was bleeding, right? When you went back,
Yes,
like 6 years later.
I mentioned it to my nurse after the doctor left the room. I said, "Can I just ask you?" My clothes were being ruined, and I was having a hard time. And what happened is I had the striated intraductal carcinoma, but I also had a bleeding papilloma, which was a secondary cancer that had gone into. So I lost everything on that side. And at the time, I was a stone sculptor, and I was making my living doing that. And there was significant nerve damage, so I couldn't. It's only recently I can use a hammer. For limited periods of time, but I couldn't use it at all. So I had a bachelor's degree in fine arts with a minor in social welfare. So I was volunteering in a women's shelter, and they hired me. And so I started on a whole different road. And and I got my master's degree eventually in mental health counseling. And so that's what I've done until I retired. And I just gave up my license. I couldn't work during COVID. And so
what a change in life. And one thing you said is that when they did discover it was the cancer, you were encouraged not to be careful, not to lose weight, right?
I was told not to lose weight because it would come back, and I couldn't have reconstruction. In 1982, nobody was writing about cancer. Nobody was talking about it. It
At
was
least
just
not the way they are now, but
not at all. It was, we didn't talk about breasts in 1982.
Yeah.
We just there were no books. Now you can go to the bookstore and there are probably 300 books on breast cancer.
Wow.
I also didn't know that cancer is fed by sugar.
Yeah, I've heard
Who,
that.
nobody told us that.
But so now you took that as, okay, well, I can pretty much eat, right? Or what it
Yeah, I
would
packed it
work
on.
out.
I just and after about I'd say 15 or 20 years, thought, well, I'm still here, so and I felt like I was past the danger point, and it hadn't recurred, even though they said it would. Um, so um, I think it was after my second reconstruction, because about every 10 or 12 years, the silicone degrades. So I tried to lose weight. I joined Weight Watchers, counted calories, just did a bunch of things, and I felt so unsuccessful. And then I found myself really being angry with myself, and my self-talk, because I was a therapist, I was like aware that the self-talk that I was doing was not good. And I thought, I better just give up. And for a long, long time, I did.
Now, was
So
that at the time you also were doing some other diets like keto and all of that, or did it come
keto was in recent years.
Okay.
I had stopped. Keto wasn't even around 20 years ago that I was aware of.
We were
They
all
weren't.
just sweating to the oldies.
Yeah. You just had to exercise, and I did. I worked out. I
Right.
walked. I ran. I actually ran.
Wow.
Didn't work.
Right. Eat less and exercise more. That's been the whole ticket, but it wasn't
Get a knee
sustainable.
So yeah, it wasn't a good plan. I didn't have a plan. My father had been overweight and he became diabetic, so I had seen him lose weight and reverse his diabetes to a degree. But as he got older, he was on insulin, and I figured that was sort of a fait accompli. That was just going to be how it was.
And so what ended up for you with your health as you gained weight? Did you notice a difference?
Excuse me, I'm a little nervous.
That's
I
okay.
see my friend Sheila. I see you, and I see your friendly face. Thanks for being here. Thank you all for being here, actually. Um, yeah, I had terrible indigestion. I would bend over and my stomach would come up in my mouth. I became diabetic. And before that, I was diagnosed with a fatty liver, but they never explained what that was.
Or how you got
Um,
it?
no,
It
had high cholesterol. Um, I had arthritic pain. I had broken my back. And so the arthritis in my back was terrible. Sleep issues. What else? Brain fog. Oh my God. Brain fog. Um, Irritable bowel syndrome.
mm,
I was starting to take a lot of medications, and metformin.
yeah.
I, I'd take it, and I had the side effect that I couldn't leave the house because I had to be close to a bathroom. That stuff, they don't tell you one of the side effects is it makes you gain weight.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, the pharmaceutical companies don't tell us a lot of things.
Well, the other thing too, as you're saying some of these issues, I'm imagining that one has medicine, this one has medicine. You're now, and I know we have
Yeah.
medical people here, especially when I see Deb, one builds on the other. And I tell you what, I've in the past few months have just had to deal with shingles, I'll just say it, and using
Oh,
ibuprofen has not been my friend. I don't know about anybody else, but dealing with constipation just with that. And I'm thinking, I can't imagine if I had one medicine on top of another, because I have been pretty lucky through my life of not having to have meds. So, it's like Wendy says here, medications are like lining up the dominoes. I believe that because just in my small amount, and then if you're dealing with inflammation, you're talking about arthritis. You're talking about,
Yes.
if you became full-blown diabetic, that you were taking metformin, I told in the beginning that I was kind of pretty sure I was leading up to diabetes. I mean, I already had some neuropathy going on in my fingers and my toes. I mean, I had swollen feet for a year. And so I was feeling some of this stuff, that the aching, the inflammation in my knee. None of it was good. None of it was good. And I had it for about a year. I can't imagine it going on and then piling medications and just how you're feeling with that. So I'm amazed. I'm thinking that, and maybe Deb can answer this. Deb is saying this is for that, and this is for that, and the side effects. Do you think that is part of the brain fog with all the meds too? That's what I'm thinking. Is that
I think the brain fog was partly food because I was overeating and I was eating the wrong things. It was partly medications, but I was not in a good place. I was feeling sick, tired. I was worried. I was scared. And I felt pretty hopeless about the situation. And I felt trapped because the doctors were not giving me good information and they didn't really want to talk about it. I was confused by all the different information and misinformation. I was fat, I was clinically obese, and I was told that it was essentially just push yourself away from the table. But for some of us, it's not that easy. I think I know that I was severely addicted to sugar. I still am. If I have sugar, it lights up my brain like crazy.
So let's find out, how did you finally find BLE? What was the transition that got you there?
Well, it was circuitous. I had my daughter had when I was getting so sick and I was falling and having really a hard time. My daughter gave me Dr. Joel Furman's book on Eat to Live, and then there was a book on reversing diabetes, and that in his book he said that diabetes 2 is a disease of affluence, and that blew my mind. It was because I had too much of everything. Who knew? And so that started me down this discovery trip. And I read T. Colin Campbell's book, The China Study. I read Dr. Esselstyn's book on reversing heart disease because I have a little bit of heart disease. I read The Pleasure Trap more recently by Doug Lisle, and how the food industry has conspired to essentially hijack our brains, which are already hardwired to go for sugar, fat, carbs.
And now by that, are you talking about, like, what is it, the Bliss Point?
Yeah.
Yes, I've had other people who've said that. Even one who was on, who worked for a company that really, that's what they're trying to find, is what is that
And they found it.
And I gotta tell you too, the other day, and I don't want to cut you off, but the other day I was babysitting two of my granddaughters, and as we were watching a little cartoon, and the cartoon, a little guy goes over to a lemonade stand, and the lemonade stand, they just have this kind of joking dialogue with the lemonade stand and his song and all this. The show ended, it was just like one of these short clips. The show ended, and she said, I would like some lemonade. And she went to the kitchen and she knew she had lemonade. And I thought, holy cow, talk about, we are just programmed And I'm going to say this right now too. I haven't talked about this to my daughter because I was just so shocked by it, but there was another little video, okay? And it's not her fault or anything, but this is what I noticed.
Yep.
Because of this programming, because when the lemonade happened, well, it's just a cutesy little show. There were two dogs in the show. Again, it's like a cartoon. They're very cute, little dogs having fun, all this. They go to a restaurant. They're sitting down at the restaurant. They're eating spaghetti. They're eating all this fun stuff. The server comes and asks them if they want wine, red or white wine. And I'm thinking, after I got done with this little, again, 5-minute clip, I'm like, what? Are they having wine in a show that is earmarked for children? Why would you do that unless you're trying to make it so normal that when you get older, you have wine for dinner? Now, to me, that is just ridiculous. And so I'm just putting it out there. I thought that is crazy. You talk about big pharma, there's big alcohol too. And there's big sugar.
There's big food and big sugar
food
and big
industries. So I got that off my chest. And I'm just telling you, like, be aware of even what your kids and grandkids are watching, because these little things, it was like one after another. One, the child actually went and got lemonade. And the next show is this. And I'm thinking, what? Red and white wine for little doggies? Okay, my rant is over. Anyway, Colleen. So I don't know if you remember what you were going to say, but anyway, so the food industry is not our best friend right now. At least we have to be very aware of what things are made of. I think the few of us, even though there are thousands, maybe millions of people doing Bright Line Eating or other similar programs, I think that it's just an awareness that we have to, kind of spread the word. And you read the China study, you're looking at Dr. Furman, you're doing some of these things to educate yourself, right?
Yes, and I watched some films, and I've watched a lot of films. And then my brain went. I was just thinking, what happened when you were talking is I thought about something, and that is, we have a thing called a pattern in our brains, in our bodies, called memory, learning, and behavior. So if you were in a specific state of mind, and let's say the most common example would be, let's say you're drinking and you're taught a song and a little dance. The next time you're drinking, you will remember the words to the song and the little dance. But when you're sober, you won't. And that's one of the things that we have neuronal pathways in our brain. So if we are, if you're building a pattern of gratitude, that's great. If you're building a pattern of complaints, that's terrible and not helpful to us. Whatever we do strengthens that part of our neuronal pathway. But when something happens and we are in an excited state, a crisis, if we experience a death, an accident, a bad day, a good day, a holiday, when we get back into that memory state, we may not even be conscious of the memory state. We've learned to do a certain behavior. So let's say the in-laws come to visit, and traditionally you serve certain foods. Mm-hmm. So you automatically do that because that's what you've learned. The memory is, I'll do this. Then there's this pattern of behavior, and then you partake of it.
Right.
And you don't really give it a second thought unless you start thinking about it. And, we talked about an inside and outside job. This is one of the inside jobs, but it's impacted by what's going on the outside. So if you,
Well, like a celebration even.
Yeah, we comfort ourselves, we celebrate, all of those things are hardwired into us, and unless we start changing them.
And how do
And
you
I
do
think
that? So,
that's exactly what we've all been doing with Bright Line Eating. We're talking about it. We form we form small communities, and we also form other one-on-one connections, um, which is what I think is one of the most powerful things about this program has been the connections, and
I agree.
and when we have people we can bounce things off, and we find ourselves in a certain state, um, and we're screwing up our plan like crazy. And I am not 100% on all the time, but I'm more than 90% on, and have been for almost 2 years. I started May 25th. Oh, I didn't finish how I got to BLE.
Hmm.
I had gone off sugar. I was on a plant-based diet because I was trying to reverse some of these things, and it had
Right.
I had made some improvements, but it was hard to stay on it because it's not mainstream. So then I would fall off it and fall back into old patterns, and but I was staying primarily plant based, and I watched the Food Revolution
Yeah.
conference with John Robbins. I think that's his name. Anyway, Susan was on that, and when she spoke, I thought that's what's missing, because I kept in the plant based community. Um, they always say if you're eating plant based, you can eat as much as you want,
Mm,
and I think it's true for some people. But as much as I want is too much. I
right.
don't have an off button somewhere in my brain. I just didn't learn how to be full. I haven't. I don't get full. I have to weigh and measure my food, and then wait, and it's enough. But I could eat again.
Oh yeah. And as I told you the other night, I've had this conversation with my husband that before BLE, but many, I mean, many diets, okay?
Hmm.
I would be eating like this might be in between one of those diets, and I'd be eating like a normal dinner. I'd start out looking like a normal plate. Like you wouldn't say, whoa, that's a lot of food. It'd look like a normal plate full of food. But there are second helpings of this or that, a third helping maybe of that. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
I would say though to Tom, with his one plate of food, which was a hefty plate, I'd say, do you get full? No. I mean, yes, I'm full. And I'm like, I don't get full. Like, I do not get full. I could walk away from this plate right here and go and have ice cream or whatever. That would never be a
Hmm.
stop. It was just like somewhere along the line. It's like you said, the button just you didn't push off. It it just there was no being satisfied. And I was shocked last week. One day with my bright meal, I was actually full, not just filled like I normally am now, but full. I thought, now that is surprising that I'm actually feeling that on one plate. Now Deb is saying she now feels full. It's been 3 years though.
After 3 years. Thank you, Deb. That's
Yeah.
good to know. There's hope. Another year. Yes.
Well, and I'm in
I can't.
3 years too. Well, maybe that's the magic number. Seriously, I don't know. But so
I don't. I think it's different for everybody. It's just like, um, I can go along for long periods of time and not crave sugar, and then one day something will happen, and that's all I can think about, and it's like I feel insane.
Oh,
I feel absolutely nuts because I'm obsessed with it.
if you don't have it in the house, that's helpful. But
I don't have it in the house.
even yesterday at work, two separate people came and offered me a piece of chocolate at my desk right in front of
Oh,
me. And I said, thanks, but no. And to the one, I actually said, thanks, but I'd have to take the whole box. And he's laughing and I'm laughing. Oh no, it's really
no, I meant
funny,
it.
not funny. I
As
go
a
to
matter
the
of fact, if you don't
workroom.
run fast enough, I'll get you.
I go to the workroom and there's a full box of pizza, there's a full plate of brownies, and there's a full plate of cookies. I went down to my car and took a nap. I was literally exhausted. And this
Yeah.
is the thing, it's the willpower. You're exhausted. I had to just get out of there. Like, I need to get out of there. So, what do you do when you're having that craving? Do you make tea or something, or what do you do?
Sometimes I've given into it,
Mm,
and then I'm really angry with myself. And I've learned to be kind to myself when I've done it. It hasn't happened. It's happened 3 times in the last 2 years. But man, other times it's just been hard. And one time, well, a couple of times, what I did is mash up a banana and put some cocoa in it and make essentially nice cream. It was still off plan, but it satisfied that whatever was going on. Um, so,
yeah,
and that
I can't
worked.
recommend because I might have the whole thing. I mean, like the whole, let's make some more of that. But you have to do your own research. And if that is enough and you can stop that, I can't recommend it, but you have to do your own research, and that's for sure. But I know you said that you did get into the boot camp after watching the food freedom video, right? Or food revolution, got into the boot camp, and you told me that you treated it like a college course. What did
I
what did
did.
you mean
I
by that?
decided, well, I was a really good student and took it very seriously. And I thought, this is a lot of money to join this, and I don't have a lot of money. And if I was going to invest that much money in something, I better treat it exactly like I would a college course and learn everything I could. So I read everything. I listened to everything. I started a mastermind group, and we're still going after 2 years, um, almost 2 years. And but recently, hi, Courtney. uh, recently, I realized I needed an accountability partner. Courtney's my accountability partner. I needed somebody who was sort of in the same stage of life, and she's wonderful.
That is
So
so special.
that has been so helpful.
And
And
what do you do? Do you
Sheila's a friend of mine, and she's wonderful too.
so what do you do with your accountability partner or mastermind? Do you meet once a week for the mastermind like many groups
Yeah, we
do?
do,
And
but
then
we don't do it. That we never. We were a ragtag bunch. It's Maria, um, Alyssa, and uh, Pearl, and yeah, we meet. We've been meeting once a week, but we don't do a traditional mastermind. And we don't follow all those rules, and I don't think any of us are very good rule followers. So that works.
But the real thing is to have this community. You're not alone. And even having bad
No,
days, you can share that. This is what's been amazing to me is that we have like this common thread amongst us. We don't necessarily have the same situations. We don't even have the same susceptibility to what is
no,
triggering to each other. But we have this common ground where we can understand that we had to do something that could actually take the weight off or to at least get the sugar out of our head, or whatever the big trigger was.
Metaphorically and literally, yes.
Yeah.
So I lost over 100 pounds, and I hover above my goal, which is driving me nuts. You know, and I said that for me, it's an inside job and an outside job, and you know, my brain had been hijacked, and then I had bad habits that I had to change. Any emotional issues that would be triggered by you know, something that came up, I had to really deal with. But with and that was the difference with Bright Line Eating. But then I had this community, and that was the outside job. I had these groups of people who were experiencing the same things. And you know, and it was okay to test. It was okay to figure out. And I was looking at different sources, and that's from the outside. And my weight started to shift, and it was scary because I felt like, you know, I'm wrinkly. I was 75 when I found this program. I'm 77 now, and and there are lots of comments about age. So I'm sure other people know that too.
Well, the one big comment about age is this fallacy of thinking that we can't lose weight after we hit a certain age.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read that so many times. I heard it in the doctor's office. Like, try to do your best because, you know, once you hit menopause, that M word, that it's really hard to lose weight. Well, from what I could see when I joined the private group in the first place, that didn't seem to be having a problem at all with people, you know, because they saw people of all ages.
Yes. Well, my friend Courtney and I have both managed in our 70s to lose weight, and a significant amount.
But you know what? You also bring up the thing about like weight shift. You know, we can worry about our skin too, because the skin, you know, I think there are two ways of thought about it. Like I mean, for me personally, I was heavy for a long time, decades. And some think that it's the amount of time that you were heavy that leads to the skin, you know, not being, you know, coming back. And then some, it's like if you lose too fast. Well, I don't think I really lost that fast, but I still have skin issues. But what do they say? There's clothes for that. And so, but that's not just the sweet spot for everybody, you know. So,
well, as we get older, our skin is less elastic. So if you manage to lose weight when you're younger, you're probably going to bounce back. It might take a few years. If you have a huge amount of weight, you might have to have some surgery if you want to get some of the skin off. I've lost slowly. You know, I don't lose fast.
And so you've lost slowly and you've lost healthily in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk about how you're going about your program. I'm assuming it's still plant-based.
Yeah, I just a few weeks ago changed to the McDougall version, which is just easy. I'm very lazy about cooking. I hate to cook. I'm not I'm not a good cook, and garlic is my friend, and bags of frozen vegetables. I don't have to worry about anybody else because my husband has passed. So all I have to do is worry about myself. And with the McDougall plan, you just have 3 ounces of boiled potato and 3 ounces of beans. And I cook my own beans, and I throw that in, and I don't have to worry about another protein. I eat huge amounts of various vegetables. I eat raw vegetables and cooked vegetables, and I try to stick to the low glycemic fruits, blueberries mostly, and apples. I eat apples regularly because they're easy. I can just pick up one and go.
And I want to repeat that because in case somebody's hearing this and thinking this is not BLE approved.
It
This
is.
actually one of the many. I guess there are many. I'm not in the group, but they're in the BLE official, but there are many now BLE official menu plans. And just to restate that for breakfast, and it's on the slideshow, but in case somebody's listening to this by podcast, the food plan is, I've got it in front of me. Breakfast, it says 8 ounces of vegetables, 3 ounces of beans, like you said. Now this says 4 ounces of boiled potatoes. And you said 3, so whatever.
Well, the other 2 meals are 3. So
yeah, and 6 ounces of fruit. So I'm saying here, the 3 ounces beans and 4 ounces boiled potatoes and 8-ounce vegetables. I mean, that's kind of a different spin on like taking your grain at the regular weight loss and having maybe vegetables for it.
yeah, and I actually did the standard original plan for until just a couple of weeks ago. But
Okay.
this is working. I just needed a shift.
But I want to, again, I want to continue with this because, again, for those who might only be listening by podcast, so 8-ounce vegetables, 3-ounce beans, 4-ounce boiled potatoes, 6-ounce fruit. That's your breakfast. For lunch, it says 12 ounces vegetables, at least half of them should be raw. 3 ounces of beans or lentils, 3-ounce boiled potatoes, and 3 ounces fruit. That's your lunch.
Yeah.
And then for dinner, again, 12 ounces vegetables, at least half raw, 3 ounces beans or lentils, 3 ounces boiled potatoes or other grain. So it's really the same as your lunch, except you don't get a fruit, and instead you add 1 fat.
1 tablespoon of fat, right?
So you have really cut back on your fat then with this program.
Yeah, I felt like I needed to. I have a little issue with my heart that I'm trying to reverse.
And so you have only used this for a little while, but you have seen some weight loss with it?
Half a pound.
Wow. Well, there you go.
That's something.
Exactly. I'll take it too. I mean, the way that I look at it too is when I see all these different plans, like, there's the nutritarian, which has way more vegetables. It makes me think, there are different ways to even do this. And, there are people who have sensitivities. So for those who, want to use the BLE official group, boot camp and all that, there are those things that are really nice to have, that they have accessibility to all the different programs and many other things, as you were saying, that you took advantage of when you were in boot camp. And
absolutely.
Not to mention, just as in private groups, you can get masterminds together, you can find accountability partners. So there are some very definite pluses for those who want to take the step to, do a boot camp too. But anyway, so on a regular day, you're making a lot of beans then. Do you have any special recipe?
Yeah, I soak. I get my beans at Aldi's, and my favorite are the black beans. So I'll get a 2-pound bag of black beans and throw them in. I rinse them, throw them in some water, and let them soak because that starts the germination process. So they have a little more. They're a little bit more nutrient dense if you do that. I learned that from my grandmother. And then I rinse them again because that takes off some of the stuff that causes gas.
Huh.
And then I put them back in my crock pot and cover them with water. And I use a trick that I got at a really good Mexican restaurant once. I asked them why their beans tasted so good, and they said they put a bunch of cumin in there. And so I sprinkle some cumin in and 2 bay leaves, and that's how I cook them. And then I divide them into containers, and it means I don't have to really do anything. It's except for get my scale out and my little containers, and I do 6 ounces per container, and then I put them in my freezer and take out 2 or 3 at a time. And
And
because I'm lazy,
well, you're smart. That's
and I
called,
cook potatoes a couple of times a week, enough for my meals. And vegetables, I get raw vegetables like zucchini and summer squash and carrots and stuff, and I'll cook up a bunch of things, and it'll keep for a couple of days, and then I'll put it together in my little frying pan with a bunch of garlic. And I get the packaged garlic. In the summertime I grow garlic, and I have a bunch in my garden right now, looking really good. I live in Williamsburg, Virginia, so
wow.
our growing season is underway. And I have rosemary bushes, so I'll throw rosemary on my potatoes. I mean, you can just have fun with it. This is
Yeah.
I just don't make it a big job, but I'm fortunate enough not to have to be responsible for anybody else's meals. And when I did have to be, I found it so difficult because other people uh, like more variety, and food isn't, it's weird. Food is not that important to me, but when I'm in crisis, that's all I want.
Ah,
It's crazy. It's like my brain goes,
I want to ask you something about the vegetables.
mhm.
You don't use any kind of fat at all to cook your vegetables?
No, I use a water saute or I boil them.
So when you
Uh,
do a water
Sometimes I roast them.
saute, you only use a little bit of water? Like,
Yeah, I keep a tablespoon in a little container of water, and I just put a tablespoon in at a time, and you just have to cook at a lower heat. It doesn't take that much longer, but
okay.
you don't need all of that fat, and we don't need that much fat in our systems.
And
We need some.
now, how do you treat salt or anything like that? Do you stay away from that for yourself?
I s- I use a little bit of salt at the end. I never cook with it.
Okay.
Um,
But you use garlic, you use cumin in the beans. So,
and
but
bay leaves.
I mean, rosemary with the potatoes, I mean, that's all just very lovely, really.
Well, if I suddenly get a craving for, let's say, Italian food, I'll look up what the flavor or the spices are for that flavor profile,
Yeah.
and um, and then I'll use oregano and whatever, because I have a lot of spices. I love Indian food, so I'll use I sometimes I'll make lentils instead of beans, and I flavor them with curry, and it just depends on. So if I get in one of those moods where food feels a little more important, or like
Well, and now I've got a question here. Deb says,
okay,
so no bakes or muffins? And I know that you mentioned carrot cake the
I
other
did
day.
well. I have this theory that if you never give yourself any version of something that you love, you can't stick to something. So this has to be sustainable for the rest of my life. And one of the things that I did a couple of times actually was that recipe muffin that they use with bananas and
There are a
it's
few
bananas.
oatmeal or
Yeah,
wheat.
they're all
Mhm.
basically the same thing, but I just substituted part of the banana with uh, finely grated carrot. And then I put some spices in, and I can't remember exactly what I used, but it was the stuff that you'd find in carrot cake. So it had that carrot cakey flavor and a little bit of pecans. I'm allergic to walnuts. And then I made an icing out of ricotta cheese. I just kind of mixed up I balanced whatever it was, the amount of uh, for the protein.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't use an egg. I used flax, I think.
Okay.
Um, so I didn't, because I didn't want to use up my protein, because I wanted to make this little frosting, and it was just vanilla and ricotta cheese, and then I sprinkled a little bit of pecans on it, and then that was my cheaty delight without without cheating.
Wow. And I've never made a flax egg, but I've heard, and Deb is saying, love flax egg. I'm not exactly sure how
You're
you make it. Can you hear me? Have you seen, okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're breaking up.
Okay, because it's saying
Yeah.
my internet is
Well,
not.
you just put flax in water and let it swell.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm going
I
to
don't know if other
definitely
people.
try something with carrot. I'm going to just say that right now. So by next week, hopefully I'll have it figured out. And I'm looking at the time and I'm realizing we're very close to the end. So I'm going to ask you two more questions, Colleen. The first one is this. You've been
Okay.
through a lot. You have been through a lot. Health issues. And what have you found to be the non-scale victories that you can't count by? I mean, you've lost over 100 pounds, but what are you seeing beyond just the weight?
Yeah. I can bend over and tie my shoes and my stomach doesn't come into my mouth. I can do Pilates with comfort. I can jump up and down on my little trampoline and do my little HIIT workout. I can
Amazing.
walk for 4 miles. I don't
Wow.
fall anymore. And when I do, if I were to fall, I can get up. At my grandson's wedding, I have to tell you. But when we went shopping, I didn't know my size. And I went shopping with my daughter and and I hadn't tried on clothes. I just kind of I could sew. So I
Yeah.
kept taking things in. And I bought a few things at Goodwill because I thought, I don't know where I'm going to land. And my daughter pulled a couple of dresses off and I said, oh, Beth, I'll never fit into those. And I did. And she picked out 3 dresses and she said, you have to get them all. She said, if you don't get them, I'm getting them for you.
Oh, wow.
And they all fit. They were like a size 10. I was shocked.
Wow.
I mean, I used to be a 2X, 3X. I was a, I was substantial. And I would never do the French formula. I have wrists that are like 6.5 inches, which is middle range. If you have tiny bones, that's you're probably okay with the French formula. And if you have larger, you just use your wrist as your measure. But if it's like over 7 inches, 7.5, over 7.5 inches, I'd say, you're large boned. So you have to accommodate that because your bones are heavy.
Yeah.
So
Size 10
anyway,
is amazing. What a gift you
who
have given.
knew?
What a gift you've given yourself, seriously. And then
Well,
have
my blood sugar was my A1C was 5.4 a couple of months ago, which is normal range. Um, I don't feel crazy all the time. I used to feel just like if I didn't have sugar, and I'd get jittery, and then I would. One time a while ago, I did eat a lot of sugar one day, and I felt I felt like I was passing out. I laid down and I took a long nap. It's like it hit my system, and my heart was racing.
wow.
Um, I can't remember. Oh yeah, my friend died. That's why I did that.
It was literally making you sick.
It was. Um,
Crazy. Just thinking about that, how much I know myself, how much that was an issue. Says so is the diabetes in remission?
yes, except for I was I had left that weight on for too long. So when I took when I lost my gallbladder, when that got inflamed and I had to lose it, my blood sugar while I was in the hospital, I was without food. They gave me no food for 2 days, and my blood sugar went like over 400. But
Wow.
that was because my pancreas is so damaged. It couldn't deal with the crisis. So I know that I'm diet controlled diabetic, but I consider myself reversed for all practical purposes. If I were in an accident or if I had to have surgery, I would know that I'd probably have to have insulin in the hospital.
Wow. Just because of the pancreas, the damage that's been done in the past.
Yeah. So historically, I've damaged my, not intentionally, but that's how it worked.
Yeah, your body can only take so much. I do want to point out the flax egg because it was brought up. The recipe for that to make a flax egg is 1 tablespoon flax meal and 2 to 3 tablespoons of water. Let it sit a few minutes, and that's it. Wow,
Yeah.
this time where eggs can be in short supply, I think that's a great idea.
You can use chia seeds. You can use a 1/4 cup of unsweetened applesauce. There are a number of things you can do in place of egg.
So here we are, the last question, Colleen. You've
Okay.
been through a lot. You've experienced a lot of success, and it seems like your health is better. So many things are better. I can't believe you're doing Pilates and all this kind of stuff, walking 4 miles. That's just fantastic.
Courtney does Pilates too. I'm not the only one out there.
That's fantastic. But what would you say to
The
somebody,
Great Panthers.
right? What would you say to somebody who is thinking about doing this too, of adopting this kind of lifestyle?
Let me see. I had written down some stuff because I was thinking. I know that I had a real fear of failure, and I think that, and I hear people saying, "I'm afraid I can't do this," but I'd say try it anyway, and also reach out for support because it's there. And I love your group, love your group, because it's very much like the original group I was in Bright Line Eating, and then things started to change. Question any information sources. Oh, there was something that I did want to say that,
I think one thing that you pointed out is about the sustainability part.
yeah, I think that one of the things that makes it sustainable is if you think about ahead of time as much as possible, you know that life is going to happen, that we're all going to have crises. Holidays are going to come. We're going to have people in our lives die. We're going to have coffee hours and potlucks, and we're going to go out to dinner. We're going to get caught someplace. And I would just say, plan as much as you can ahead of time. If you can carry some nuts and you can grab a salad, you're done. You're in good shape. But then if you get stuck and you do the wrong thing, be kind to yourself.
Yeah, it doesn't help anything to beat yourself up.
No, actually, it does the opposite, because then it destroys our own self-esteem. And if we do that to ourselves, why the heck are we doing that?
And this is, again, having a buddy is so important. And sometimes you're new and you don't have a buddy, so go to the group. Seriously, I
Yep.
remember in the beginning, when I got started, I didn't have a buddy, and I went in the group and I'm like, I'm going to a wedding, and I just want to bookmark that my intention is to stay bright. Can anybody, can I confirm that to you? And I did. I said it.
Yep.
And I had several people say, we're going to be right here when you come back, check it. And that kept me in my
Yes.
mindset that they're waiting for me to come back and say, did I manage to stay bright. And it
That
did help me.
it does.
I didn't
The
know any
support
good
is
person.
critical.
So it is critical. And so with that, Colleen, any last words?
Well, oh, gratitude. One of the most important things that I think in my life and the way that I've gotten through some of the most horrible times, and I mean horrible, is to look around and find the things that I'm grateful for. When my grandson passed, I was so grateful for the friends that my daughter had that came and came and came and showed up, and for the friends that I had that showed up.
Yeah.
And when I get up in the morning and I step out with my two really bad dogs, you may have been hearing them whine at the back door. Panda, who's a 7-year-old border collie, and my Trip, who's 18 months old. Aussie, and they call him Osholes for a reason. he's he was 8 pounds. He's 60 pounds, and he sits on me.
Wow.
I know my legs go to sleep. But I'm so grateful that I have them in my life, and I'm so grateful for this group, and I'm so grateful that the friends I've made during COVID, when I was so isolated. I moved to Williamsburg in the middle of COVID, where you couldn't go out without a mask, and I hadn't had my shots yet. So gratitude, I think, plays a big part in our ability to move forward no matter what.
Well, Colleen, I think that's a wonderful attitude, and I am so grateful for you to say yes. And, for
Thank you.
to put it out there that your age, and you give so much hope to so many by putting that out there and just saying it can be done, and you're living this lifestyle, and with a grateful heart, going through life. So I just thank you for coming on tonight, and thank you for the part you play in the group. It's really helpful and inspiring. So with that,
thank you for having me. And
welcome.
I love every single one of you. I think it's just amazing. And I love it that you show up and you're kind over and over again. I think I posted something that said, I'm grateful for all the people who are rooting for me that don't even know me.
Right?
Because it's true.
It
yeah,
is.
we're doing that for each other.
It's really true. It's not a fake high five. It's like really there. And again, there's a common thread, a common bond that we have with each other. So with that, I'm going to say good night. Thank you all so much for being here. Good night. Stay bright.
Good night. Thank you, Noreen.
Good night, everybody. Bye. So, Colleen, how would you like to play 3-Question Thursday?
Sure.
Okay, here's the first question. I'm going to assume a big part of your why when you got started was the health, all the health issues that you were having. Is that your same why now, or has it changed?
It's changed significantly. Now it's to maintain the health and the benefits that I've gained, and to not go back to the way I was. And especially, well, I think at any stage, but because I'm aging, I don't want to have to be taken care of. I want to be like 105 and be feisty and a pain in the butt.
Well, I think if you're walking 4 miles and you're jumping on, when you're jumping, are you talking about like a round thing that you jump on with a?
Yeah, it's they call them rebounders. It's a trampoline, essentially.
Okay, well, that's going to be question number 2. What is your exercise routine like? Do you have kind of a system or a schedule for that, or do you just add it whenever you feel like it?
Well, I was doing it 6 days a week, and then I kind of fell off. I got kind of sluggish, and that's why I needed an accountability partner. And so that's why now I'm getting back on it because I have a reformer in my garage. I've got a 2-car garage that I turned into a studio when I moved here. I don't care if my car gets rained on.
Okay. While you're saying about the art, that necklace that you're wearing, I
Yeah.
know that you said that you make jewelry. Is that one of your creations?
Yeah.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I've recovered some of my ability to pound with a hammer. So this is hammered copper, and it's hammered, pierced,
That's
spindle
beautiful.
plated.
Because I know that you're doing an art show coming
Yeah.
up. So if
Uh,
anybody's interested, I'm just gonna tell them to send a message to you. And now the third question is this. You went to the boot camp and you treated it like a college course, you said. So you have a lot of resources that you looked at, books, probably videos,
yeah.
vlogs, all the different things. What is one or two things that it could be journaling, it could be anything. What are the resources that you have used that have been most beneficial?
The most beneficial thing to me has been the connections with other people. Second to that is the new information. And I listen to Susan's vlogs on, oh God, brain,
Like YouTube or?
YouTube. Thank you.
Mhm.
Because they're there. And I really listen and I read what people are saying, that I try look for successes. And I have a little sign on my refrigerator that says plan your success. And I really think that one of the lessons that I learned early on was to plan. I write out my menu for the week and I shop from my menu. And so that I don't have, if I'm tempted, I just ignore it. And if it's something that I can have, I might put it on my menu for the next week. But I don't deviate from my plan. In that way, I'm rigid about it because I feel like I have to be for myself.
Right.
Um, and I'm not a rigid person, but I believe in saying no to myself.
Well,
I
the
think that,
discipline.
well, that strengthens that neuronal pathway.
Right. And you have,
Being on time, doing the right thing, uh, being honest. If I make a commitment, I am bound by it no matter what. And if I make a plan and I've committed it, that's it. I
and that's what's, you have to start to even do any of this with that kind of mindset. And then hopefully the automaticity makes it easier. Again, the neural pathway that is changing or drying up or whatever, so that those yeses that we say to ourselves to do what we want to do, as far as following bright lines, following what we planned, those kind of things can be a little bit easier, don't you think?
I do. I also think for me, making a long-term plan, other than just a week at a time, if I try to think into the future 5 years from now, I feel panicky, like I won't be able to do this. But if I'm taking it one day at a time, and I'm doing my grocery shopping, and I'm doing it from and I have this menu, and it's on my refrigerator, and I know exactly what I'm going to have. It just feels easier.
Yeah,
Um,
you've got it together. And then you've got the beans in the freezer, you got the potatoes boiling, you got your sauteed vegetables, you're like all set.
but yeah, and I keep my scale right on the counter, and I keep a cutting board and my knife right there, and it's just easy. And I have one frying pan. I use a little well, it's like a 10-inch Calphalon, and it's got a cover, and I use that all the time, and I wash it and put it back on the stove so it's ready for the next time. And I'll put my little cup of water there with a tablespoon, so I never have to really it takes away the tediousness of having to think through everything.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. And I just want to say to everybody, there's some discussion going on about carrot cake muffins. So head over to the Starting Out Bright group and we'll have that discussion. We'll get some recipes going. There's some good ideas in the chat. So anyway, Colleen, thank you so much for sharing your story, some great information, inspiration, and thank you for playing 3-Question Thursday. It's been great to get to know you. I really,
Thank you.
really enjoyed it. And thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Stay bright. Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Noreen.